According to a report by HubSpot, content with relevant images gets 94% more views than content without relevant images. This statistic emphasizes the crucial role that high-quality photography plays in business success, particularly in digital marketing. After a decade in hospitality and serving as the director of events at the prestigious Beverly Hilton, Don Mamone decided to channel their passion for creativity into a new venture. Alongside their wife, Emily, they founded a successful photography studio that has been capturing incredible moments and exceeding client expectations across the globe for 15 years. But Don's impact extends far beyond photography. As a speaker and coach, they help others reach their maximum potential by discovering and embracing their true identity. Proud advocate for the LGBTQIA+ community, Don recently came out as non-binary and actively works with organizations on issues of diversity, inclusivity, and representation. Today, Don will share insights into their entrepreneurial journey, the challenges they've faced, and the strategies that have helped them thrive in both business and in life. Welcome, Don.
Thank you so much for having me, Beverly.
Let's discover the sparks that created the unique opportunities along your entrepreneurial path. Share a fun anecdote about your business's origin. We want to hear about the light bulb moments, the kitchen table brainstorming sessions, and the aha breakthroughs that launched your brand into the spotlight.
Oh my goodness. How much time do you have? I feel like it's been nearly 20 years. I left hospitality in 2009. And part of the reason was I got a gentle little shove. As you mentioned, I worked for Hilton Hotels Company, and I loved everything about being at the property level right up until I didn't. And once I didn't, I really didn't. And so there was an opportunity here in Dallas. I moved here from LA. There was a little bit of adjustment that needed to happen, just generally speaking. But the biggest adjustment was I went from the property level at a prestigious hotel that was pretty much on 24/7 to a corporate endeavor that was much more the traditional 9 to 5. And what happened was I came around my little cubicle and I loved the job. It was a subject matter expert project where I got to basically talk to software developers and different technical people about how it actually works at the property level. There's nothing worse than a company saying, we're going to do this thing, and they don't have anybody on the team that does it for a living. And so they brought us here to do that. And I came around my little cubicle and I had a question, and it was like 5:02, and the entire place was a ghost town. And I was like, wait a minute. Oh, wait, that's right. We go home at 5 here. We're done for the day. And so I went home and I made and ate dinner and I went to the gym, and it was still only about 8 o'clock. And I thought, now what do I do? And I read and I made some friends and I got to know Dallas. But at the end of it all, I realized that I needed a hobby. And that hobby was something that I hadn't done since really high school or when I traveled. And that was pick up my camera again. I fell in love with photography in high school. And this is how old I am, Beverly. I love to take pictures. And then I lived in the darkroom for hours at a time developing photos, and picked up my camera and I started doing event work for local publications. So I was basically like a stringer, right? A freelancer. I would go shoot parties and photograph people. And what I realized in those moments was this is when I'm the happiest. When I'm creating imagery, this is when I'm the happiest. And 2 years after I moved to Dallas, Blackstone bought Hilton. Hilton decided to cancel the project and was going to acquire the software we were working on as a vendor, a partner, as opposed to building their own. And they said, we'll be happy to find you another hotel somewhere. And I said, nah, I've seen how the other half lives, and the idea of going back to a hotel and living in a hotel for 80 hours a week doesn't sound appealing anymore. And I looked at my then fiance, soon to be wife, and I said, I either have to go work at a hotel or we need to make a go of this hobby of ours, because she was also a photographer and she was doing photography in her own right. And I say we just tighten our belts, pull ourselves up, let's go. And that was in 2009, and we never looked back.
I love that she was so supportive of that. She was as much of a believer that you guys were in it together. I think making that leap together is a lot easier when you're on your own. So that's lovely that you have that kind of relationship with her.
Yeah, she's a lifelong entrepreneur. She has owned a number of different companies. And it was funny because I took comfort in the security and stability, although there is no such thing as true job security, right? Anybody can be laid off at any time. But I worked for a company for 10 years. And before that, I worked when I was in college. And before that, I worked when I was in high school, and I always got a paycheck. And I remember, I got the phone call. She was rubbing my back like a supportive spouse would. And I said, I've never been, quote, let go or on the verge of being let go. I always just moved to a different project or a different hotel. I said, I don't know what to do with this. And you should give it a shot. I've been doing this my whole life. And I think that you're capable. I think we'll do a great job together. I said, yeah, but you don't get a paycheck. How does that work? And you just have faith. You have faith that you build a business, the business will come. And it was really petrifying, but there was a clarifying moment, Beverly, not that long later. I'm a go get 'em kind of person. Like I will hunt and I will do these things. And what I realized suddenly was, wait a minute, there's no base, which was the fear. I don't get a paycheck every 2 weeks. There's no base, but there's also no ceiling.
No.
And that was where there was a shift for me. I was like, wait a minute. So I get to go hunt and I get to eat whatever I kill. I get to make as much and create as much. And the flexibility was something that was just, you had the fact that we got to go out and fight for what we earned. And the fact that I got to make my own schedule as opposed to being, handcuffed to a hotel.
Yeah.
It changed the world for me.
All the things that entrepreneurs love, right? The flexibility, the idea that you get to build whatever it is, you get to build it. That's the part that makes us, I think, excited inside, but also you're like, you said, petrified at the same time.
Yeah.
So very much a dichotomy of emotions that we have to live through. And it's not over once you start the business. It's continually down. You have to swallow that fear on a pretty regular basis of outside your comfort zone as you grow and develop. And there's always the pushing forward, I feel, as an entrepreneur. So yes, real feelings for sure.
100%.
So describe the most unexpected plot twist your business has faced and how did it change the course of your journey?
The unexpected plot twist, I would say, from a photography perspective, there's a couple and they're going to lead into one another. So I'll just sprinkle it like you would on an ice cream sundae, maybe. This is the topping. Emily and I were both independently operating. So I was doing events. I had just started doing some weddings. I got pulled into it by somebody that I knew that was a wedding photographer mentoring me, but also I had friends that were getting engaged. They were like, we want you to do it. I'm like, I don't really do weddings. They're like, no, we want you. And that is an important thing when you're working on a wedding day. Loving your photographer is huge. We used to tell people that we're going to spend more time with you than you are the person you're marrying. So you should make sure you love your photographer. And so that's the direction I was headed. Emily was doing more commercial and fashion and lifestyle. After a few years, we realized it's just silly to be running two brands. That doesn't make sense. And we were married at that point. And I remember the idea of why don't we take our two businesses and become one? We decided to rebrand. And so after having gotten married, put the Mamones up on the whiteboard at our networking events. And during those networking events, when we walked in, because my wife and I usually went networking together, they were like, oh, the Mamones are here. Not because that was the name of our brand, but that's how people identified us because we were now in business together and married. And my wife took my last name of her own accord. And so that's how we named our business. And what we decided in that moment was that we were going to rebrand. And so we through networking and relationship forming, we threw a party in May of 2012. That was the party.
It's like the anniversary right now.
Yes, we are celebrating our 12th anniversary as this brand. We literally rented out the top floor of the Stoneleigh Hotel in Dallas. It had a room that was very social. It looked very soft, like a wedding. There was a big boardroom and there was a guest room. And so in a fit of brainstorming and branding over brunch, my wife and I came up with the idea that at that time, we were going to photograph everything from the ballroom to the boardroom to the bedroom because she was doing a lot of fine art intimates for our brides. And so this conception of a new brand was born and we rode that wave for 5 or 6 years. And we loved everything about it right up until we didn't. And I think you're going to notice a pattern, right? I loved everything about hotels right up until I didn't. And we loved everything about this brand right up until we didn't. And what we started to notice was we didn't enjoy the weddings as much as we used to. Multiple interviews with brides. They're interviewing multiple photographers. They're asking questions and it's a very emotional process for them. It just started to wear on me. And what I acknowledged was that's not fair for anybody. And I think that a lot of people, and no shame, no judgment, just stay there because that's what they do. And I said to Emily, I'm like, yeah, it's comfortable. They know it. And so I said to Emily, I don't love this as much as I used to. And she said, I don't know that I do either. And so what happened was I said, I'm going to push us more towards corporate and nonprofit and big events and conferences. And what we started to do, we started to market to that. And we started visiting hotels that did that. And we started reaching out to planners that did that. And a very interesting thing happened, right? We started to shift our market. And we were like 90% weddings and 10% other stuff. And then we were 80% weddings and then we were 70% weddings. And I remember we had this opportunity at a local hotel to do headshots, large headshot opportunity for a big company. There's nothing sexy about it. I was going to say it. Like you stand in the lobby and you're supposed to be charming and entice these people to do something that they really don't want to do. You think you are offering free root canals, but what you're doing is offering a portrait. And most people are like, no, it's good. I'll use the one from 10 years ago when I was 10 years younger and a few pounds lighter.
There and left.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so the thing though was that they said, we really enjoy working with you. Y'all are so polite and so charming. And so we're just going to keep using you both here in Dallas and around the country. And we said, great, let's do that. And there was a phone call that came in and I remember sitting down and it was the planner for those events. And they said, our client in Dallas has loved working with you so much. They need someone that does incentive destination photography. Do you do that? And I heard the words incentive and destination. And I thought, yes, of course we do. And they said, because they want to take you to Costa Rica for 7 days and they want you to document photojournalistically the journey of their highest end sellers. And what happened was there was a 5-year period of time where we followed these pharmaceuticals for their incentive destination trips to Costa Rica and Nevis and Mexico and Hawaii, because we did the not so sexy job with so much heart and so much love and so much care. And it was around that time that I said, this is where we belong. It's time for us to start phasing out weddings. And so we basically just started. It was very difficult, Beverly. I remember the days when I started to say, well, we don't do as many weddings as we used to, and went to, we don't do weddings anymore, and took down all the wedding photography. Mm-hmm. And it was
the scary moment, another scary moment.
Is insanely scary. And you know how the universe, sometimes when you tell it what you want, it conspires to give it to you.
Oh, yeah.
He had a bride that was a great bride. She was lovely. And she went and interviewed 2 or 3 different photographers and we were in the running. It was us and one other photography team. And I was like, this is a great wedding. It was like a 5-figure wedding, beautiful venue, vendors we've worked with in the past. And I remember not booking it. And I thought, man, like I put so much time into it. I thought we were a great fit. I'm glad that she found the right photographer for her. A couple of days later, one of those incentive destination calls came in.
And you wouldn't have been able to do it if you had done the wedding. If we had
booked that bride, we would have not been able to go because we would have had to travel on that Saturday. And I said, Emily, this was the universe telling me we don't do weddings anymore.
Yeah.
And so it was in that moment that we went from wedding or social to now exclusively corporate and nonprofit and branding and some lifestyle and commercial. And every time we've made the switch, it was because we loved it right up until we didn't. And we had the courage and the forethought and the companionship and the support in each other to say, what's next?
This leads into my next question. You may have already answered it, but I feel like there might be a little bit more to it. Mm-hmm. Reflecting on this entrepreneurial journey, what is one aspect of your business strategy or decision-making process that has evolved the most over time and why? I feel like you are constantly evolving because you've gone from hotels to now weddings to now destination. Like you have this evolution process. What is it about your business that has evolved the most over time and why?
I'm going to answer that in a very roundabout way.
Okay.
I think the thing that has evolved the most about my business isn't about my business at all. I think the thing that has evolved the most about my life is me personally. And in evolving personally, I changed the way that I'm doing business because I'm more authentic. I also think that as I aged, I realized that I had spent a very long time lying to myself and hating myself. And the way that I like to describe it is I was so successful, what the world sees as having succeeded and or is succeeding and happy and joyful and all those things. But deep down, I was like alone and afraid. When I found myself, I found my voice and I found my confidence. And I think what that's put before me is this idea that I get to choose all the time, everywhere I go, even when I feel like I don't, quote, have a choice. I'm using the podcast air quotes because even when you feel like you don't have a choice, you always have a choice. And 41 years having not told anyone, not a single carbon-based life form on this planet, including my sister, who I'm incredibly close with. I didn't have the courage. I didn't have the words to share who I was. And then when I finally shared them with Emily, and then I worked through the process and shared it with the world, suddenly I'm not going to waste a single minute. And so when there's a moment when I'm like, yeah, I don't know that this is right for me, I dig deep, I explore it. And sometimes I prove myself wrong. Sometimes I come back and I'm like, no, this is for you. It's just you want to do it differently, or you want to do it for a different group of people, or whatever it is. But I never, ever anymore feel like I have to, need to, should, expected to. Like, I don't answer that call. I answer the call that says, life is short. What do you get to do? And how do you want to do it? And to whom do you want to do it to, or with, or for? And then that's what my guiding principle is. And that is in life and in business. So that is the thing that's evolved the most.
Before we dive back into the inspiring world of Spark and Ignite marketing, let's take a moment to thank the incredible supporters who make this podcast possible. Today's episode is brought to you by BC & Associates Marketing, your go-to partner to help you spark and ignite your marketing. At BC & Associates Marketing, we believe in sparking ideas that lead to unique opportunities, whether you're a small business owner looking to ignite your brand or an entrepreneur seeking marketing mastery. Our team is dedicated to crafting tailored solutions that fuel your growth. From strategic planning to ongoing support, BC & Associates Marketing brings over 25 years of expertise to the table. We're not just marketers, we're your partners in success, committed to sparking innovation and helping your business thrive in the ever-evolving landscape. So if you're ready to take your marketing to the next level, visit bcassociatesmarketing.com. Let's spark extraordinary opportunities together. A big thank you to BC & Associates Marketing for supporting the Spark and Ignite Marketing podcast. Now, let's get back to the show and continue sparking those ideas. It's a different story, but it's the same story for me in the sense of 12 years, my business was run by others. Like, my clients determined my business. And then I decided, no, this is my business. I get to create the business that I want, that serves my dreams, my legacy, my want, what makes me happy, who I am. And with some wisdom of age and confidence of, I don't really give an F what other people think anymore.
Yeah.
There's some wisdom in that. And despite societal whatevers, you decide, like, this is authentically me. And I think what's lovely about the universe is the universe responds very positively to that typically. When you are being you and you are pursuing the things that you are meant to do in this world, it just happens.
Like, it does. And I love that I want to be clear for the audience. The universe does respond, but it responds in I find, different ways. And sometimes the thing that we think we are so afraid of is the thing that we need. And so here's an example. So many of my clients that I work with, Beverly, are in your exact position or have been, right? Like, I woke up this morning and I feel like I don't have the business I've wanted. I have a business that's successful. I have a business that makes money, but I'm not running the business that I want to be running. And so when we start to go back through it, I was working with someone who was a speaker as a side hustle, right? She's immensely successful in the events and wedding space and has built a business with her sister and made copious amounts of money. And when she started to speak, she just fell flat. Not that she wasn't successful. She reached out to me. She's like, I don't feel it and I want to feel it. And when we worked together, basically the crux of it was, why are you speaking on the things you're speaking on? Like, why are you talking about these things? And she literally said, I think that's what everybody expects from me. And I said, what if we went through an exercise and you just did and gave people everything they didn't expect? And you just listened and talked about what you want to talk about. And that was literally the lynch. That changed everything. She redrafted her entire thing. And now suddenly, not only is she more popular and more successful, she's happier, more content. She feels like she's making a way bigger impact in this space than she would have in the other. And so, to come back full circle, when you say the universe responds, it's either that or people have no need or want for you anymore. And that's one of the things people fear. a lack of belonging and acceptance, and they worry about what others' opinions of them are.
Mm-hmm.
And I say, listen, here's the deal. When you're a bright, shining light, one of two things happen. People draw close and they're like, I want to bask in the warmth and the glory of this light. Or they're like, I'm not here and I'm not here for that. And I'm not about that, which is great. When people filter out, wish them the best and wave goodbye.
Yeah.
They are not your audience. They're not your people. And that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
And authenticity oftentimes leads to building a business and a life that you can't wait to get out of bed to live every day.
I was up at 3:00 this morning because I was excited about all the things I had to do today. Yes, exactly. And that took me a long time to figure out. And that's really with marketing too, with the companies we work with, the small business owners, is we want them to feel the same way, excited about their business again. And really take that as a unique opportunity to build their business in a different way from a marketing perspective. That's a very unique opportunity then to be who they are, to be authentic, maybe to even be a little contrarian, like you're talking about, like against the grain.
Yeah.
So yes, all of that is, you're speaking my language and I love it. So we always talk about the why and the mission and the vision and the legacy and what you really want, and doing that work and becoming so clear on who you are. That is everything. And then all the other stuff falls into place, but you got to do that work and be super clear and understand your passion and your purpose. Yeah. Then it all just comes together. So yes. Okay. So share a customer story or an experience with a customer that perfectly captures the essence of your business. We want to hear about like the memorable moments or like a heartwarming interaction that keep your customer coming back for more.
Okay. So I'm going to do what I tend to do is I'm going to sprinkle. One of my number one experiences that I've had recently is both about my photography business and my identity, which I think is so important. We work with a very high-end client. We've worked with them for the last 7 or 8 years. The way in which we got hired was we were recommended by the hotel. And at the time, this event had 1,500 people at it. And I got a call from the CEO's and owner's executive assistant. She's like, hey, we looked at your website. We got your information from the hotel. We really like your work. I think the best, we would love to consider hiring you. Can you talk to me about what this looks like? And I said, sure. And I ask what I call the nuts and bolts and the hearts and flowers questions anytime I interview, especially a larger conference that's multiple days, because you got a lot of stakeholders, a lot of people involved and invested. I said, tell me, what are we documenting? How many photographers do we think we'll need on the ground? What is your expectation for the return? Do you want just images? Are you looking for products? These types of things. And then I said, and then talk to me about the hearts and flowers. And what's important to your CEO? What's important to your stakeholders? Who are your guests? Who are going to be in the audience watching this 3-day conference? That's a long time to commit. And I also realized that this was the 3rd year of the conference. And I said, so you've worked in 2 different cities. And I know a lot of people tend to hire regionally, but when you do an event of this size, a lot of times people grab onto a professional and say, hey, these people get it. We're going to keep hiring them. Why didn't that happen? And so she said, our CEO
That's a really
said that,
good question. That's a really good question. Yeah.
Because loyalty is everything to us, right? Our clients coming back over and over again makes our job so much easier. The old saying of like, it's easier to keep a client than get a client. Yeah. All day long. She said, candidly, the photographers did okay, but it's really important to our owner that this tell really the story of the event. And the photos, they couldn't really look at them and feel the event. They didn't fall in love with the photos. And I said, okay. And we went through a bunch of other details. And I said, listen, I'm confident this is right in our wheelhouse. Now, here are a couple of the sprinkles, right? I keep saying there's these little tangents. So I was still doing some weddings at the time. And I had committed to helping one of my mentors with a wedding at the Ritz-Carlton in Colorado. And there was an overlap. And I said to Emily, there's this really amazing corporate event. It's a 3.5, 4-day corporate event. I can be there for the first 2 days, but the last 2 days, you and our lead associate are going to have to cover it because I have to fly to Colorado. And I said, and just to throw a little wrinkle in there, there's a VIP meet and greet with Tony Robbins after he speaks for 4 hours. I think you've got this. Do you think you've got this? I've absolutely got this. So we booked the corporate job. I went and supported my friend and mentor. And I remember reaching back out after the event and delivering the event. And I said, I just want to make sure oneverything we talked about was delivered and then some. Like exceeding expectations is our normal. She literally said, they can't stop looking at the photos. They've downloaded the photos to the Google Drive. They've categorized them by face. And they were literally just going in there and looking at them over and over again. Okay. So that was 7 years ago. We've done the event plus other events every year, and they're about to celebrate their 10th anniversary next year. And it's in those moments when you realize it's not about necessarily what you do. It's also about how you do it. And I said, I promised to talk a little bit about identity and authenticity and things. And so this client obviously knows me as the me that I was and the me that I pretended to be for all those years. Mm-hmm. And I told Emily, I said, one of the hardest things for me after I told her, but didn't come out publicly, was I know that there's a lot of people that misunderstand gender identity and gender ideology and gender expression. And I'm just worried that we'll have worked so hard to acquire all this loyalty and all these clients. This one in particular, because unbelievably kind human, unbelievably good to us, know his family, know his children, but a man of faith. And so the thought was, if this person's a man of faith, he might just say, hey, listen, I love you and I appreciate you, but we're going to go on a different journey now, or we're going to seek out someone different. I never sought out that approval from. I just figured I'm going to be who I am. I'm going to let the cards fall as they may. I was supporting them on a phone call, and somebody asked the question, and this is so relevant to what we're talking about, asked the question of this person and said, how do you balance being a man of faith and a family person and an entrepreneur in a way that allows you to be everything all at once? And this was so unexpected, Beverly. And I cried. I cried on this call. He said, one day I woke up and I hated everything about my job and I hated everything about my client. And the reason was because the one thing all of my clients had in common was they were willing to pay me money. And that's not a place that we use as a filter, right? If the only common thing is people are willing to pay you money. And so he fired all his clients and he started over again. And he started to be the most authentic version of himself. He's a man of faith. He's got many children. He loves life. He went on to say, let's use, for example, Don. I've worked with Don for the last X number of years at this time, and they're going on a very different journey and they're being authentically who they are. And we couldn't be happy for him. And we're going to love them and work with them. And I thought, holy smokes, talk about the universe putting me in a place where I wouldn't normally be because of COVID and supporting a client that we love, for them to, of their own accord, not only validate what we do, how we do it, but who we are and how much they love the authenticity that had come out. And that's everything to me. I feel like that customer journey for us for the last 7 years is the embodiment of creating the business and the life that you get to lead and want to lead and love to lead based solely on who you are and everything else falling right into place.
It gave me chills, Don. It gives me faith in humanity because I feel like that's the way we should all be doing business.
Yeah.
And if someone is happy and authentically themselves, like, why are we not celebrating that and supporting that in all the ways?
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that your mentor
Thank you.
was that person for you, because that is what everybody needs. It makes me a little emotional too.
It was a beautiful moment.
I feel like you should be supported as a human, especially in the passion that you love and that you're good at. That's the thing. It's not just support me because to support me, but no, support me as all of this all together, which is amazing. Such good answers, Don. I love it.
Thanks.
So we're going to dive a little bit more into the marketing side, which is where I nerd out a little bit.
Yeah.
So what's one unconventional marketing tactic or campaign that you've tried and were surprised by its success?
Emily and I are relationship marketers. We don't run ads. I don't really spend a lot of time on SEO and Google, although I probably should and will likely get more into as we continue to grow and change. So as a relationship marketer, I got invested in networking and I would go to events and I was on the board of an event association. But one of the things that we did was I acknowledged that loyalty is everything. And we always determined where our leads came from. So when we were doing more social, we realized that our leads came from the planner, the dress shop, and the venue, because we should be the next person in a social environment. So if you're a wedding photographer and you're out there, you need to reach out to hotels, planners, and dresses. At that point, they're
partners. Yes.
Right. And at that point, if they're not thinking about their photography, then it's not high enough up on their list. Because what I tell people is when you're in a wedding space, wedding photography studios typically are a very small team, maybe even only one team of photographers. And if you don't book them and they're booked, you lose them. And so it should be high up on the list if it's a priority to you. So long story long, we would always go to those places. When we moved to corporate, the venue was still the same. We would still go to venues and corporate planners, but partners were much broader. So somebody might have their CEO walk in and be like, hey, that event we have next week, did you hire a photographer? No, I didn't know we needed one. Okay, we need one. And so typically it could be anybody they formed a relationship with. It could be DJ, could be the floral company. And so we really started realizing that it's a sort of broader reach. What we did was we started hosting more events. We opened a brick and mortar studio to meet with brides and grooms. And so what we started doing was we started hosting happy hours. We called them headshot happy hours. And what would happen was people would come, they would get a complimentary headshot if they brought a new unwrapped toy for a local charity called the Birthday Party Project. What we ended up doing was meeting a bunch of people, getting a ton of publicity, and doing a really good thing for the world around us.
Love it.
And that worked out really well. The one, though, that I think was really fun, Emily and I decided like we need to go out into the world and we need to find our most loyal clients and referrers. And we need to make an impact. Something that they will never expect. And so it was around September, going into October, fall. It's our favorite season. And I said, what if we did a rock and roll themed like gift delivery? She's okay, I'm with you. And I said, we'll do it around Halloween. And we did the Our Clients Rock marketing campaign.
I like that.
We dressed up like rock stars. We had on torn jeans and wigs and the tattoo sleeves and makeup. And we had a basket that we delivered to everybody with a handwritten note, thanking them for whatever it was that they were providing us. For some people, it's thank you for all the referrals. For other people, it's thank you for all the business.
Yeah.
And inside that box was everything related to rock. We made pet rocks, little googly eyes. We did skinny pop. We did pop rocks.
Yeah.
We did ring pops. And so each of the little gift baskets cost like $8 all told. Plus we ordered the cards and then we did the deliveries and we made sort of a fun marketing campaign out of it to say, hey, when we come, we want to take photos with you. And
yes,
we made appointments. Nobody likes the drop in.
Right.
So I compartmentalized. I think we did 25 or 30 of them for our highest net worth people. And the fun thing about it was not only did we get the opportunity to do something nice for these people, but then they would take pictures with the rock stars that dropped off stuff and then they would post all about it.
Yeah.
And you get that endorphin rush of doing something nice and then having people say nice things about you.
Yes.
And from that event, I think came a significant amount of business, but also more importantly, just a significant amount of it feels warm fuzzies.
Relationship stuff. Yeah.
100%.
I love this idea of a little like fun kit. Doesn't have to be really overthought and not really expensive, but just a really nice, fun, bring a little magic to the day. Oh, that's good. Love it. What's one marketing trend or technology that you're excited about possibly using in the future?
That's so interesting for you to ask that. So I know everybody's talking about AI, so I'm not going to talk about that.
Okay.
I will say that I've never used AI from a perspective of content creation or content curation.
Okay.
I'm going to say that I love the idea of dumb intelligence.
Totally contrarian. I love it.
Yeah, I always feel like there's the pendulum swing. And I'll share a little something about myself. I am a vinyl record listener. I love vinyl records. I've had some vinyl records from when I was a kid. I've procured some. I've gotten some as gifts. I'm always looking for original presses. I try not to buy remanufactured vinyl. So like my brother-in-law found an original Frank Sinatra Live at the Sands at an estate sale for $5. I was like, buy it right now. And so people have asked me, they're like, okay, Don, what's the deal? Does it just make you feel fancy to have vinyl? You're like on the trend. And I said, no, here's the deal. For me, it's not even the audio. Okay. There are some people out there that are audiophiles that have tens of thousands of dollars worth of stereo equipment. And they're like, I hear the dynamic range and the this and that. I will say that I think the audio is better. I think you can hear the highs and the lows better. So there is more dynamic range, but that's not what it's about for me. Here's what it's about for me. My daughter is 7.5 years old, Beverly, and we have a record player in our dining room. It's not connected to the stereo system. It's just a record player with a nice audio speaker in it. And we've made a habit of listening to records in the morning. TV in the morning. And when we have breakfast, we have records. And she's like, Daddy, what record are we going to listen to today? I said, I don't know, baby. Go look through the stack. And she'll sort through the stack and we'll intentionally pick a record and listen to that record as the artist intended. And so the word that I think about when it comes to listening to a record is intentionality. When you put on streaming, it just serves up songs, or you've created a playlist and it will go on. Now, there is a place for that, because I'll tell you, if you're busy and you're doing stuff and you have to go flip the record every 15 to 18 minutes and then pick another record and wash your hands before you do, that is not the time to listen to a record. But when you're being intentional and you look at the liner notes and you look at what date it was, like, this is what my daughter and I do. We look in what date was this record made? How old were mommy and daddy when this record were made? Mommy and daddy weren't even born when this record were made. Oh my goodness. There's an intentionality and an experience that you can't duplicate in another way. When I say that's what I'm looking for in the pendulum swing, is this idea of grassroots, in my head and in my heart, content creation. That's what I want. That's what I want more of. I want more of that type of marketing feel. The idea of coming up with the theme. Now, if you use AI to say, hey, what's a really popular, super common theme right now? And then say, okay, great. These are all the popular themes right now. I'm going to do something different. Like, it's a tool like any other. And I'm not going to be on this show saying whatever, you don't use AI. What I'm saying is, when everybody's moving one direction, yeah, you can follow that momentum. Yeah, you can do that thing, but there's also something to be said for being counter to that. And I think it's a beautiful idea when we focus. My words for this year are focus and intentionality. I'm done working on breadth of impact, and I'm going for depth of impact. I want to do more at a deeper level than more at a wider level. And that takes intention and focus, like listening to a vinyl record. The revenge of analog happened, right? Everybody was doing the digital. And I just heard my nephew told me that some of his friends are now calling what they call dumb phones to certain places.
Like this week.
Yeah. It's an actual thing. Like, they still have their iPhone, but as an example, when they go out for the night with their friends, they're taking a burner phone or a flip phone so that they don't get online and don't distract from what they're actually doing, which I think is beautiful. So as with anything, there's going to always be a counter to what everybody else is doing. And I just want to encourage your audience to sit down in front of a blank page and a blinking cursor and say, I did this the other day as I was working on my book. I wrote, what am I even doing? That was my prompt for the day. What am I even doing? And I wrote for 4 hours to say, not only what is it that I'm actually doing, but what do I want to do? What do I not want to do? And it's like all these kind of branches and spokes came out of this hub of this question. Ask yourself those questions. And that's one of the marketing things I'm most excited about, is the idea of counter to AI, counter to the trends, and like the trend that's not a trend.
How have you created and maintained lasting connections on your entrepreneurial journey?
I care so hard. Like, I care so much. And I think that compliment I get really often is, my standard question for people is, how can I support you? And I ask it every time I see someone. How are things going? How can I support you? And they're like, oh my God, what a great question. And I think that it's a way in which we get to look at one another and realize that we're all in this together.
Yeah.
That's it.
So I have a little bit of a ministry background in Stephen Leaders, and the thing they say to ask all the time is, how can I help you today? What do you need today as a person, as a human? Like, how, because people will say, if you need me, call me. But you need to say, what can I do right now today to help you?
And people are reluctant to say, Beverly. So one of the quick anecdotes that I heard one time was, when someone, the first thing they do is go ask their neighbor for a cup of sugar, whether they need it or not. And the reason that is it opens the gateway to say, I came to you for a cup of sugar, which means you can come to me for a cup of sugar. And so
law of reciprocity kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
And when you ask a person generally, like, what can I do to support you? If they're like, oh, I don't know, be like, how about this?
Yes.
Offer something up.
Yes.
It's a beautiful thing.
Or just show up with food or whatever. Like, just do something, because they will not ask. One of my priests that I work with, he said to me, because I didn't want to ask for help for something, he said, you're preventing them from having the crown. Don't prevent somebody from having their own crown. It brings a lot of joy to people to help you. Don't prevent that from happening. So I support you as a great way to live in that sense. What notion would resonate from its core if your business had a voice?
Authenticity, 100%, all the time.
Dive into the library of business wisdom that you've acquired over, you said, almost 20 years. What was the number?
I've been in the business, but entrepreneurially 20 years.
Okay. So which book, podcast, or entrepreneur has left the most indelible mark on your journey?
That's impossible for me to answer. And I was thinking about it based on your wonderful process of being a guest on your show. Let me just take a minute to highlight that. Like,
Thank
Such a
you.
wonderful process. I was looking at some of your pre-show notes and there are so many. I will say that a lesser known, I think in wider audiences, most recently, there are two. One is a PhD psychologist by the name of Dr. Benjamin Hardy. I met him at an event. I read his books. I participated in one of his masterminds, and his concepts about being your future self and how you work your way into impossible goals for the you that you are now to become the you that you get to be broke my brain in all the best ways.
I'm writing it down because it's so powerful.
It's really genuinely powerful. And he's a accomplished human, very kind. I've interacted with him personally and professionally, and I can't recommend it. He's written 5 books. He's about to release a new one called Rapid Transformation. Buy his books, watch his YouTube channel, soak up some of his stuff. In direct and polar opposition to that, I've read an author by the name of Michael A. Singer, and he's written 2 books. One is called The Surrender Experiment, and the other, you read that? And the other is The Untethered Soul.
Okay.
Both of which are like Eastern ideological.
Mm-hmm.
It's about mindfulness and consciousness. And I said to my beautiful, talented, creative, and unconditionally supportive wife at one point, I'm just struggling because these 2 books are essentially polar opposites.
Mm-hmm.
One is basically saying, here's how you architect your future. And this one is literally, one of his books is called The Surrender Experiment. Yeah. And it says, if you're too focused on what you know you need and know you want, you leave no room for the universe to give you something that you could have never expected.
Or to enjoy the moment. In that moment, you are learning and growing. And yes.
And so I'm literally in the midst of navigating that and figuring out like how to take from both to fill up my own bucket. And it's been a beautiful journey. And so I'd highly recommend both of those for your personal and professional life.
What's one unconventional tool or app that's become your secret weapon for success? And how does it revolutionize your workflow and your business?
Everything I do seems to be unconventional these days. I just say this seems super random, but it's been over the last 4 or 5 weeks, my Kindle. As somebody I believe in claiming and manifesting, not from the fact that, hey, if I just lay on my couch and wish for a Ferrari, I'm going to have a Ferrari in my garage. I don't believe in that kind of manifesting. I believe in when we give words power, they're powerful. And you'll know that when I introduce myself now, I oftentimes say that I'm a professional speaker, an identity coach, and an author. Oh, you've written a book. I'm writing a book. Mm-hmm. I don't think you have to have a best-selling published book to be an author. And so I originally had writer. I'm a writer. For me, the differentiation is as an author, I am authoring things that are persistent pieces of content that I think will make the world a better place. When I find that I'm struggling with writing, I've been reading. And what I've found is
so powerful. Yes.
I read differently now that I identify as an author.
Yes.
And so for me, the Kindle has been a way of voraciously devouring content, very strategic content. Now, I'm not just saying I pick up some kind of trashy novel, not that there's anything wrong with a good beach read, but what I'm saying is I read the book Mad Honey recently by Jodi Picoult and Jennifer Lynn Boyle, which was about gender, is a subplot, right? And oh my God, I cried, I laughed, I got angry, I got validated. Every emotion you could possibly imagine. But what I realize is as I read, I'm like, I love the sequence of that writing. I love the way in which that was written. And ironically, by consuming, I believe that I'm going to be able to create better and different. And so I guess what I want your audience to know is sometimes it's important to consume strategically so that you can create authentically, right? And I think people would think, oh, you're just reading. So what? You're just taking time off? No, like in the middle of the day, if I read for 2 hours, that in that moment is me working on ways in which I get to create content and show up in this world. And so I want the audience to start thinking about that. What is it that you do in life where something that you would never even have thought of will better prepare you to do that thing and to do it better? That is something that I've realized is really important.
How do you keep your entrepreneurial spirits alive? And how do you feed it?
So this came up earlier with small P passions and the big P purpose. I thought that creating a legacy through my camera was my purpose for a very long time. And now, don't get me wrong, there is no one true and only purpose in our lives. There's many purposes. My daughter and wife are the two biggest from a personal perspective. But I had an event that I was at, and it was one of our biggest events. It was the client that I referenced earlier. I was at this event, and it's our biggest and most ambitious event. And somebody that I'd known for years ran up to me and said, "Hey, can I talk to you for a minute?" And so I grabbed my camera and I followed her with the expectation that she needed a photo. And I said, "Oh, you don't need a photo." She said, "No, I need to talk to you. I'm lost and I'm suffering and I need your help. I've been following your journey. I don't know who I am." And I said, "I see you and I love you for everything you are and everything you're creating in this world. And let's have a chat at 11 o'clock at night when the event is over. And I'll stay up for as long as I need to stay up until you feel like you can go about your way of finding who you are." And it was in that moment that I realized that was my purpose. And that's what I'm going to do. And that's how I get to show up in this world. And so when I'm tired and I'm struggling, or I have writer's block, or I feel like I'm not making the money that I want to make or having the impact I want to have, all I do is close my eyes and think of someone holding my book, clutching my book with both arms, waiting to meet me, have their book signed, learn more about my journey so that they can know more about their journey. And they'll think to themselves, everything's going to be okay. They're okay. I'm going to be okay. And that's all it takes. Fire relit, burning like an inferno and ready to go.
Sparking, igniting, and blazing, right?
100%. I love the idea of spark. It's all it takes.
Yes, that's all it takes. It's just a moment.
Yep.
And it's like the feel of electricity and the air is charged. And I had a moment. That's what this all kind of stemmed from, is I was talking to a client and I was giving them some strategic ideas. And as I was talking to him, he was really excited about what I was talking about. I had an out of body experience of, why are you not doing this for yourself?
Mm-hmm.
And like literally time stopped. Like the sounds faded away. It was like so profound for me. And it was just a moment, like Passy, because as minutes to start talking, I was like back into the moment, but it was like, oh, everything shifted in my mind. And as I'm listening to him, all of a sudden such powerful resolve grew inside of me in that moment. And those are the very tangible moments of spark that just can change everything, that can transform everything. They're beautiful moments of city in charge.
You can't unsee them. I tell clients that I'm like, okay, if we're going to do this thing, I need you to understand something. Like once I show you what you're about to see, you can't unsee it. And you're going to notice it from now and forever. And you're not going to want to act out of alignment with that. Yeah. So it's, congratulations. How beautiful.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So this kind of was answered, but maybe you have a little tweak to it. In the fast-paced world of entrepreneurship, like we are all legit entrepreneurs, are the busiest people on the planet.
Yep.
How do you stay grounded and maintain your sense of purpose and clarity amidst all the chaos and uncertainty that is the world that we live in right now?
That's a great question. I'm going to say that it's my daughter. It's funny because I say that I never knew how much I would appreciate entrepreneurship up until the day she was born, because there were so many things I loved about being an entrepreneur. But the thing that I love the most now is how much time I get to spend, not around her, but with her. And she's 7.5 now. And in double the amount of time, she's going to be 15, right? So I look back on her life and it feels like a blink of an eye.
Yes.
And she's going to be 15. And I think I have squeezed every last drop of time and attention and focus with her. And that's not something I can ever get back again if I had missed it. And so that's one of the things that I'm the most proud of. And ironically, and we didn't get too much into this, but the reason I came out 7 years married and 9 months having had a child with my wife was the strongest reason was her. I refused to live in a world where I taught my daughter by example that it's okay to hide who you are, period. And so she is everything to me. And the person that she's becoming because I'm my authentic self makes me so incredibly proud. And so she's the nexus of it all.
If your business prowl the animal kingdom, which creature would it embody and why?
This is funny. You know what? I've thought of Zootopia right away because I have a 7.5-year-old. And
Great song, by the way. The music in that is so good.
So good. So here's the deal. Mine would have to be a mystical creature. Like I have a unicorn behind me too over there that my daughter painted for me.
Yeah.
I would say that, but I'm going to give you a slightly more complicated answer. It would be one of the predators from Zootopia, because you can't be prey and be an entrepreneur solely. You can't be but I'm not a predator. Like I believe in collaboration over competition. There's plenty of business for everybody. I'm not a shark. I'm not going to hunt. I'm not going to take business from other people, but you got to hunt. You have to be willing to get out there and fight for what's yours and to cleave to those clients and be like, this is my client. I'm going to serve this client. And I would be any one of those wonderful, beautiful creatures that is willing to hunt and to fight, but not at the expense of someone else.
So it's time to shift gears into we call it the Blaze Forward segment, but essentially it's the inspiration from our conversation. We turn it into actionable strategies for people who are either just starting out in entrepreneurship, or they're at that kind of moment of where do we go next? Or what do I do next? Or how do I inspire myself? Or how do we all get those stuck moments, and sometimes hearing the right words, the right phrase, the right book, that's the moments, right?
Yep.
So looking back on the journey you've been on, what pivotal piece of advice do you wish you had received earlier in your career? How might this insight have saved you some time, resources, or headaches along the way?
Obviously, there is an undeniable connection between who I am and what I do. That's the first thing I would tell people is you are not your job. You are not your career. You are not your company. You are not your business. They may be irrevocably tied together, never to be separated, but they are two different things. So that's number one. Number two, we live in a world where we walk a tightrope over lava infested with crocodiles, with jagged spikes and rocks. We walk this tightrope between enough and too much. And I want to hold up a mirror. I can't give people this permission slip. So if you're in the audience and you're listening to my voice right now, this is not me giving you something. This is me holding up a mirror for you to see something. And that is that just existing on this planet, putting one foot in front of the other and breathing air, you are enough. And you get to be exactly that. And the idea that you're too much or not enough to other people tells you more about them than it does about you. And you get to be exactly who you are everywhere you go with whomever you're with. That gets to be your fuel. And I said this to my wife earlier. I said, I need more fuel. And she said, what do you mean? And I said, as we started the new year, I started talking about depth and focus and intention and writing a book. I'm 40,000 words in. So I'm maybe halfway there-ish. And as I start to lag or the momentum isn't there, I'm like, I need more fuel. And she's like, what for? And I had this epiphany. I need fuel to move forward. I need fuel to push me. I need fuel to pour it on the stuff that doesn't serve me and burn it to the ground. It was this moment where I felt like I get to do exactly what I'm designed to do, how I'm designed to do it. The piece of advice I would give people in my handy little way of saying it is your brand, your unique brand is an extension of your authentic identity. And your marketing, your creative, beautiful marketing is an extension of your voice. And anytime you're like, I'm not allowed to share this part of me, or, oh, people won't like this part of me, you do yourself and your potential client a disservice. It's 100% tied together in a way you get to be that person so that you can create that brand, so that you can serve that client. And the only way to reach them is with your loud, unapologetic voice and marketing.
It goes full circle to what you said in the beginning about how people who are not there for that are self-selecting themselves out of your orbit. And that's perfectly okay. That's actually the best thing that could happen.
100%.
Because you're not spending any extra energy or anything on a person who doesn't deserve to be in your orbit. Yes, yes, and yes. And we talk a lot about in marketing, if you're in that space. And even I think with photography, we often will say, what is your niche or who are you serving? Understand you can't, it's just like finding a mate. You can't find a mate unless you know who you are.
Yep.
You have to know who you are before you know who your niche is and who you serve and why you serve and how you serve.
Yep.
To really do a good job. I will say that this process isn't always easy. And I'm on this process. And I'm sure that it's an evolution because I don't think you're ever done once you're on it. Like you might even get a little comfortable, then push again and get a little comfortable and push again. But I just did a video where I talked about how I'm very camera shy, but I've been doing video and I said, I'm not perfect. And this is who I am. These are my thoughts. These are my feelings. This is exactly it. And I can't ask my clients to do these things if I'm not doing these things.
Yep.
So you have to walk the walk and talk the talk. So for me, I was like, it's time to like pony up. What is the advice you want to give them to take away from this interview?
And this is both strategic and tactical. Okay. So everybody go grab a pen and paper. If you have to pause it,
Do it now.
People talk about fear a lot. They talk about imposter syndrome. They talk about an inability. It is what it is. Fear is a good thing. Fear means you're pushing yourself past your comfort zone. And anytime you do something that you're not really good at, that you've done a million times, you're going to be afraid or you're going to feel like you don't belong there. Say hi to it, welcome it, sit it down next to you and bring it along for the ride. The one thing that I want you all to get rid of is fragility. It's the other F word. When we live in a fragile space and we think, am I allowed to do that? Am I supposed to do that? Is it okay? Did I do that? Will this client like this? Will this person like this? If you're acting in alignment with your core values and your identity, then what other people think doesn't matter ever. And so when you get rid of the fragility, are you ready for the last F word? It's not the F word. I promise. I promise to keep it clean. Okay. The last F word, which is the end all be all holy grail of what we've talked about for the last hour, is freedom. What you're going to find is you get to do anything you want, whenever you want, wherever you are, and you'll never worry about whether it's, quote, right or not. As you can imagine, I don't live in a binary world. Shocking, I know, but I don't believe in either or. I believe in both. And so when you're getting ready to make a choice, there is no right and wrong choice. There's the choice that's in alignment with who you are and what you do or not. There's the one that's best for your business or it might not be. Like there are shades of gray for your decision making, but the number one thing you're going to find is if you're sure of who you are and you own your identity and who you are, then anything that you do, you're going to feel free and comfortable to do. You can raise your price. You can lower your price. You can market here. You can market there. There's no thought. There's no fragility of walking around on eggshells and wondering and wishing and hoping. You're just going to act bold and confident in alignment with who you are and how you get to show up. Freedom is everything. The emails I write, the marketing copy I write, the way in which I approach clients. I literally said to somebody, oh, we don't know and blah, blah, blah. I know them well enough to have this snarky attitude. I'm like, that's okay. Not everybody's ready for the best. But when you are, we will serve you and exceed your every expectation. That's snarky and sarcastic. And that's me. That's who I am. And so there was never a part of me that was like, am I allowed to write this? Of course I am. That's who I am. And that's how I get to show up. And you get to do the same. So erase fragility, embrace freedom, and your whole life and your whole business will change.
And I think along the same way, I think the thing that I've learned is there are moments where you have the fear. The anything that I have feared, honestly, any step in my career, my whatever, has been very scary, but also the most rewarding choices I have made in my career. So the scariest is also the most rewarding at the end of the day. As long as I'm evolving along that continuum that is me, whatever that looks like, those moments will continue to happen. It never really stops. Thank goodness my parents didn't give me the fragility thing. There's moments where I'm a little bit unsure, like the video thing, I'm like figuring it out and all the things.
Yeah.
But it's always been do it, try it, do the best you can, get better at it.
Yep.
It's an iterative process. Don't worry about it. It's fine. And I work with so many clients who won't even take the step because they're so worried of failing. They haven't even tried it. They're worried about failing. You don't fail until you actually try. This idea of fear minus fragility equals freedom is very powerful. And all the things that we align with how we approach our customers and our clients as well. A little bit different verbiage, but very similar in the sense of you have to know yourself and you have to be able to try to, if you want to grow, you have to grow.
There's plenty of things, Beverly, I don't really necessarily like about myself, that I'm constantly evolving and changing and growing. I love myself unconditionally, which means that I get to love those things too. Whether I like them that much or not, maybe not. then I get to look at that and notice that and think about ways in which I can change that. But if I can love you unconditionally without capacity, then you get to do the same, and it changes so much.
Oh gosh, it's been so great, Don, having you on the show. And I have
Thank you.
really, truly enjoyed our conversation. This is why I love what I do. Meeting people. I've had so many fascinating conversations. Everyone's journey is so unique. I am grateful for this opportunity to have the show and have guests like you on it. Thank you so much. What are the ways that people can find out more about what you do and your projects and this upcoming book you're working on? Tell us all the things.
I am somewhat ubiquitous online under my name, which is Don Mamone, right? And you can put that in the show notes. I have a website, donmamone.com. I'm very active on Instagram and LinkedIn and a variety of other social media sites. I inspire people through the written and spoken word. And so my zone of genius and my happiest place is on a stage. So if you're listening to this podcast, you're looking for a keynote speaker to inspire and motivate a group of people to be their most authentic selves, I'm your person. If you're looking for someone to help coach you to become that person, then I'm your person. A lot of the work I do is either individual, one-on-one, or small group, because people do tend to effuse things that they may not have told other people all the time. And so we do that typically in what I try to create is a very safe, comfortable space for them. But between speaking on stage and inspiring and motivating people individually to become the best, most authentic versions of themselves, to then go on and have, the most successful, happiest, most impactful lives, that's my jam. And so people can find me on my website or on social media. My DMs are open. I answer them myself. So
wonderful. Thank you so much, Don.
You're welcome.
Your insights have illuminated our listeners' path. They've offered some invaluable tips, lots of books to read, strategies to think about to enhance not only their business and marketing, but also your personal life, which is amazing. So to our listeners, I hope you find this episode as enlightening as I did. And remember to implement these insights into your small business and into your life. And don't hesitate, like Don said, to reach out if you have any questions or need further assistance or help. So stay tuned for more inspiring conversations and actionable tips to ignite your marketing journey on the future episodes of Sparkling Ignite Your Marketing podcast. And until next time, keep sparking and igniting. Wrapping up another episode of Spark and Ignite Marketing. For your weekly dose of inspiration, join our community on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, or TikTok for behind the scenes and exclusive content. Until next time, keep the spark alive and stay inspired.